some rules, some housekeeping. Then after that, the president, Dr. Chudinwigwe, would welcome us. And then after that, we'll take off with our presentations. So let's say we'll start at 5:15. So that gives him the opportunity and the time to let everyone in and get everyone settled in.
Hello, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Yes, Glad. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good.
Good evening.
Good evening. Izebua.
Yes.
Yes. Did I pronounce it well?
In fact, I was going to ask you if I do. The way you pronounced it was like you were the one that christened me. Well pronounced, yes.
Thank you. Okay. My friend, brother, and colleague, I'm sure he said we should give more 15 minutes. That's okay. I can see we have just about 27 of us here now. Please bear with us. You know, men, it's in our nature. But I'm sure women, except when it is time to make up, otherwise you see them, they're always on time. So we can give just few minutes and then we start.
So we should be good to go in the next 5 minutes. In the next 5 minutes, exactly 5:15, we'll crack on. So we've got 4 minutes to take off now. So we've got 2 minutes now. 2 minutes. 2 minutes, and we'll get going. Right. So it's 5:15 now, and we are good to go. Okun, please, if you can run us through the house rules.
Yeah. Thanks, Chigudu. Okay, just once again, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us for this online seminar. Just some guidelines so that we have a productive session. We've put everybody except the speakers on mute so that we don't get any background noise and any interference, and we can hear them clearly. If you have any questions or comments, put that in the chat, and I, myself and Chukudi will make sure it gets to the speakers. The flow we will have is after each speaker, we'll give a few minutes for questions, and then we move to the next speaker. And at the end, any unanswered questions, we'll take them as a panel session. So without keeping us waiting too much, I'll let Chukudi start the introductions and let's get the session going. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yes, I would call the president, Dr. Chidimwigwe, to say a few words. Thank you.
Yes, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. We welcome you so sincerely for making our time to attend our annual event. This is an event we host every year called the Feast of Barracuda by the entire flagship, the National Association of Sea Dogs. I'm sure some of you that are friends and are following us on Facebook and other social media must have seen all the flyers flying around from different branches across the entire globe. But today is our own day. It's an annual event. So we have taken time to assemble the best of the best this evening. So please just give us your time, your attention, pay attention. There are a lot to learn. We have gathered the best that will unpack all their years of experiences here. And today, what we'll be discussing will be equalizing inequalities. Actions men must take for equality. I mean, just listening to the title, the theme of the seminar. Of course, you agree with me that there's a lot to unpack from it. And we have gathered, like I said, the best. Izebua Okoya, who is a corporate strategist and a coach and a mentor. She will be giving us a lecture also on this, followed also closely by Carolin Anuregbe. Carolin is the founder, Low Carbs and Keto Bakery here in the Midlands. And then also finally, we have Gladys Briggs, who's been our friend for a very long time. She's she's an academic in the University of Cardiff. So she will also be putting in some professional angle to that. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. Please, let's just relax and enjoy the presentations. Like my colleague said, if you have any questions, after each presentation, we will have a few minutes for questions, and then we take the panel discussion at the end. My name once again is Chukwudi Wigwe, but for clarity's sake, my friend here also is Chukwudi. So for us not to bore you with too many Chukwudis, so I've shortened mine to Chudi. So when you say Chudi, I know you are referring to me, and when you say Chukwudi, you are referring to my other brother here. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Wigwe. Yeah. Thank you everyone for coming out today. Before we go further, I just want to, for purposes of clarity, to introduce, ourselves and who we are. So I'm going to share my screen, and this is who we are. We are National Association of Sea Dogs, NAS, aka Paris Confraternity. In terms of history, in 1952, 7 young men individually felt they had identified some of the ills in the society. These 7 young men individually shared a sense of resolve to do what they could to combat these ills. These 7 young men pulled together and became a group. Thus, they became a group of individuals with like minds, joining hands to work towards a better society wherever they find themselves, however they can. And that's what has crystallized today to the National Association of Sea Dogs. Today, NAS has 63 chapters worldwide, spread across the 7 continents. The chapter where we are hosting this today is Magna Carta. I would want us to go back, for people that don't know, to try to research that term, Magna Carta. And this chapter covers Hertfordshire, Buckinghamshire, and the home counties in the UK. In terms of what we do and how we do them, we do a lot of things, charity and the rest, projects for community causes and things that would help us develop our society. And that leads us to what we are doing here today. Today, like the president said, is the Feast of Barracuda. And we choose topics. We always choose topics for each event. And today's event is woven around one of the Millennium Goals, which is to do everything to achieve inequality in the society. And we felt if we're going to achieve inequality in the society, we have to start from ourselves. You know, and starting from ourselves will be to support our girls, to support our women, to support people, you know, because one of the things that guide us is one of our, what we call our 4 compass points. And one of them is for comradeship and chivalry, for us to be able to support the people around us to achieve whatever they aim to achieve. And that's why we're here today. And today, like he said, like the president said, we are going to deal with the topic we are calling Equalizing Inequalities. What can the men do? Sometimes we assume we know, we think we know, but we said, let's go back to the people that know and let them tell us and fill the gaps for us. And without wasting your time, I'm going to call on the first presenter, who is Mrs. Gladys Briggs. By way of introduction, Mrs. Gladys Briggs is an associate in pure maths at Cardiff University International Study Center, with a passion for fostering academic excellence and inspiring the next generation leaders. Mrs. Briggs, also an advocate for gender equality, mentors women of minority ethnic background to take up opportunities available in STEM education and careers. Mrs. Gladys Briggs is going to take us today on the topic identifying barriers that hinder women's career advancement. So if she's ready to take the floor, should I say the Zoom?
I'm ready.
Right. Crack on then. Thank you.
Yes. Give me a second. Let me just share my screen.
I'll stop sharing mine.
Okay.
Go on.
I'm just going to hit down. Share. Share. Okay. I put this on. This in the corner. Okay. Okay. So, good evening, everybody. I feel so honored to be able to speak to you on the topic and also to share the platform with these amazing women. A huge thank you to our dearest husbands, brothers, uncles, friends, the organizers, and their partners. The first solution to solving any problem, they say, is acknowledging that you have the problem. So we know that by merely organizing this, you are already addressing some of the issues that we are going to be talking about today. So I thank you. I'm going to be talking about, we're going to be identifying barriers that hinder women career advancement. I'm going to be highlighting the challenges of life, being born and living as a woman. And we're going to be discussing like why women need to be supported. Just a little background about me. My name is Gladys Briggs. I'm an associate at Cardiff University International Studies Center. I was hired to teach pure maths, but now I'm also teaching applied stats and maths for business. I had my first degree at the University of Port Harcourt in Nigeria, where I studied mathematics and computer science. I did that same degree again when I moved to the UK at the University of South Wales, and I also got myself a teaching qualification or a qualified teacher status. I trained to teach secondary maths and IT, but now I'm in higher education. So that's a little background about me. So what are we talking about today exactly? What are our challenges in achieving career goals, and how can the men around us help support us? Well, from childhood, according to the United Nations Convention on the Rights of a Child, UNCRC, Article 6 to be specific, we've all had this right to survive and develop. We've all had the right to survive and develop from childhood. But just surviving and developing isn't enough. We need to thrive and succeed. Thriving and succeeding is a huge part of surviving and developing. It's not enough just to be alive and growing physically. We need to feel that we are part of something, we're part of something which is making a difference to life, to community, to society, to the world. Many of us find a purpose in our careers. We find a purpose in friendship circles, maybe sometimes in religious settings. And within these settings, we set up goals for ourselves. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I will achieve this. I will achieve that. But how is it that at the end of so much aspiration, we achieve very little or nothing? What are the barriers that hinder women from achieving intellectual goals that can open doors for them? What are the barriers in the way of women education? What are the barriers that hold women back from growing, even after they have beaten all the hurdles of education and eventually carved out a career pathway for themselves? What halts women's progression? I've addressed this by putting them into 4 different phases in a woman's life. There's the stage around when a woman is born. So birth and childhood gender stereotypes, the things that happen around the time that a woman is born. There's a stage when a woman's body begins to change, around the time when she's a teenager. Those body changes happen up until the woman dies. Yeah, and then you have the stage where she becomes a young adult or an adult and starts to deal with motherhood, the burden of raising a family. And lastly, I will look at the perimenopause and menopause stages and the challenges that come with that as well. And we shall look at all of them one after the other briefly. So the first one is when the child is born, birth and childhood gender stereotypes. These days, when children are born, straight away, they are color-coded. You can see the babies there. There's the lady, there's the girl in pink and the boy in blue. And that begins their journey of living their lives according to the constructs of society. Toys for girls are mostly dolls, playhouses, cooking equipment, play makeup, and hairdo, whereas their male counterparts get to play with toy cars, trucks, complex rail systems, airplanes, already thinking in terms of technology, problem solving, and decision making. When I was growing up in the 70s in Nigeria, we didn't have this pink and blue situation, but we had our own unspoken, unwritten child raising styles that disadvantaged girls in so many ways. Girls were always the ones sent to the kitchen to help out with cooking and cleaning, whereas boys will just play football all day on the streets and maybe help wash that car on Saturday. Role play, which was the most popular way that children played in Nigeria back then, most of us experienced role play in the context of mama and papa. I know a lot of us experienced or enjoyed doing that when we were children, when we were young. Even in that mama and papa role play, the girls were cooking and cleaning. In my husband's native Calabari dialect, it is called, the cooking is called belesoye, and belesoye is the food that the little girls cook. You know, the one that you put the hibiscus flower, you put water, you put things, and you try to pretend that you're making a pot of soup. And then the boys pretend to be dads. They go out to work, and when they come back, the girls serve them the belesoye, and they eat and try to live as a family where the woman is taking care of the home front and the man is going out to do something. From that early age, she's already preparing for a role in cooking and cleaning. Nobody knows how this psychologically affects the mindset of a woman, to think that her role is strictly around the home front. And if she isn't succeeding in the home front, then career isn't fulfilling. Women always prioritize the home front over everything else. But the next stage is the teenage, when hormones begin to change. And these changes start from around teenage up until when a woman dies. Girls begin to feel the impact of hormonal changes from a very early age. I'm not sure if enough research has been done about this, but I know that for me, I started having strange fevers from as early as the age of 11 to 12. And girls these days start even much earlier. It's a very frustrating and exhausting time for a girl. The hormonal changes which take place in girls can affect their careers significantly. I was in a secondary school and in a meeting with the head of the pastoral care of the school. And he said to me, while boys are mostly interested in sports and video games, girls are mostly interested in boys. It awakened my awareness to the impact of hormones on the different gender. Our bodies, I mean the bodies of women or girls, prepare us from a young age to start a family, without taking into consideration the changing world, the world where women have become providers, solvers of problems, decision makers, administrators, managers, leaders, and so on. So what can men do to help us? Our daddies, brothers, uncles, nephews, office colleagues, husbands, what can you do to help us? When we have mood swings, what can you do to help us? Low energy levels, cognitive impairments, pain, premenstrual syndrome and menstrual pain, concentration problems, and just inability to function. When we have to take the days off school or the days off work for period pain, how can you give us the support? How can you help us to go through these different phases? The third phase the third stage in a woman's life, education and work life, is the young adult and adult motherhood phase. Because I said young adults because teenagers can get pregnant as well. Yeah. And you have to deal with the responsibilities that come with having a family. Men have been trying a lot these days, I must say. Around the period of Father's Day, I saw a lot of videos online of men doing their babies' hair, playing with their babies, and just being present fathers. While we welcome the improved participation of men, we can't deny that the real burden of parenting lies on a woman. The demands of pregnancy, you all know labor and childbirth is a life and death situation. Some women lose their lives, and childcare often require women to take time off work, which can disrupt career progression and reduce opportunities for advancement. Carol is going to speak more about this on a more personal experience level. Balancing work and family responsibilities can be particularly challenging, leading to reduced work hours or need for flexible schedules. This can sometimes result in lower income for women, limited career growth for women compared to their male counterparts, or women without children. There's the concept of motherhood penalty, which describes the disadvantages that mothers often face in the workplace, such as bias and discrimination. Employers may perceive mothers as less committed or less capable, impacting hiring, promotion, and salary increases. Additionally, the lack of affordable childcare and supportive workplace policies can further complicate the ability to maintain a robust career trajectory for a woman. Again, that takes me back to the big question. What can men do to support us? What can men do to help us? What can men do to help us level up? Last but not the least, because I know I put them in the 4 phases, but there might be other phases that I didn't think about. Yeah. The last but not the least is the perimenopause and the menopause phase. Of course, you can add yours to the list. I am personally at the perimenopause stage, and lots of women may be at this stage without even realizing. Symptoms of this stage can affect emotions, cognition, mental as well as physical health and well-being, and can start as early as the early 30s. So we begin to experience things like brain fog, fatigue, all of these things. You may have been experiencing them from the age of 31, 32, without even thinking that your body is beginning to wind down. The cognitive impairments can directly impact productivity. As we're talking about careers now, how much can you do if you have brain fog? It can impact productivity at work, because how much can you do? Yeah. If you experience difficulty in concentration, brain fog, memory lapse, confusion, blank moments, anxiety, physical aches and joint pain. Even though I'm not yet in menopause, all of the things I've just mentioned now, I have experienced them. I'm experiencing a lot of those things now whilst in a job. Yeah. So how can men support us go through these different phases? What can men do to help? One of the key factors in my journey has been the support of my male colleagues, the mentors I have, the male mentors I have, and the male members of my family, including my husband. It was never just an individual effort. I'll give you an example of the smallest thing that men can do sometimes. When I started this job at Cardiff University, I was really struggling with writing up the lesson plans for the week, as well as solving math problems on my slides ready for teaching. As a math teacher, when you set up I can't just do the slides the way that I'm doing these ones. I have to do them and put some problems, because math is about solving problems. I have to put some problems on the slides for my students, and I have to get my students to answer those problems. But I also have to have the answers to all of those problems. So I had the challenge of making all of these slides for every single lesson and getting all the questions in and answering all the questions. And it was very challenging for me. It was a male colleague that said to me, "Don't worry, Gladys. I can send you slides I've used before, and you can just adapt them to your lesson. I can solve all the problems, any math problems that you feel that it will take too long for you to get through it. Send it to me, take a screenshot and send it to me. I will solve it and give you I'll solve it and type it all up for you so that you can add it to your slides." It seemed like a very little thing, but I spoke to my husband about it. It was very impactful for me, because he was thinking ahead of me. And it's little things like that that women hope, that women cherish when you're in a workplace, or that kind of support is what you need to help you level up. You know, he was thinking ahead of me, and at the same time, he was being sensitive enough not to make me feel that I am not doing well, or I'm not doing it like him, or to patronize me. I'm going to summarize everything that I've said with these key questions. I'm going to summarize this with these key questions so that maybe when we come to the question and answer session, then men can answer these questions for themselves and for us. Because it's good as a teacher, I was told that students understand things better when they are engaged in it, when they participate in solving that problem, and they bring about the solutions to that problem. So if I give men some of these questions, then men can think about it while we are here, and men can come up with some useful solutions. My first question is, how can men support a girl child, a young girl child? How can men challenge those stereotypes that I talked about at the start of the slides? My second question is, how could men support the teenage and young adults, your daughters, your nieces and nephews who are going to be in those careers in the future? How can you help them to achieve alongside their male counterparts? And the third one is, how can men support women when they are pregnant and at work? Not just at work, but even at home as well, as husbands, as brothers, as male colleagues. How can we support women, knowing that that pregnancy is going to affect their progression, their progress at work? What about when women are just having a bad day? That's my fourth question. How can you recognize that maybe a woman is just having a bad day? Your hormone can throw you in a funny place and you will just be in a miserable place the whole day. What can men do to support us when we are having that sort of day? What about perimenopause and menopause? How can you support your wife? I didn't know that I was going through something. It was my husband that said to me, oh, maybe we should do this test or do that test to see where your hormone levels are, to see how maybe that may be impacting what you're feeling. It's seeing how you can support somebody and help them. How can women balance home front and work front and thrive in both? Because both are very important to us. And if you give us the option to choose, a lot of women will choose the home front, because career success is not satisfying for us, but we want that work-life balance. We want to be able to come back home to our children are sane, our marriages are sane, we have food for the family, everything is all right, but we are also thriving at work. How can men help us? That's everything that I put in the package, and I hope these questions will help you to begin to search yourselves, and at the end of the session, towards the end we can come up with some useful solution. It's been a pleasure speaking to you all, and I will get back to you towards the end of the session, maybe if you ask any questions that I got some useful answers for you. Okay, so that's the end of my session.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Oh.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Gladys, Mrs. Briggs. Like I said, all this started when we thought about ourselves and we said, do we really know as much as we think we know? I'm sure a lot of people here, by just the first presentation, would be asking themselves that question again.
Mm-hmm.
And they would have realized that for me, I've realized I don't really know. I didn't know as much as I thought I knew.
Mm-hmm.
We have a question now. I think I don't know if you want to deal with that now, or you want to deal with that at the end of the presentation.
I think let's deal with it during the question and answer session, so that
yeah, that's
yeah,
fine.
If we've got any questions, we could just throw them in the chat and then we can
exactly
visit them.
Yes, so we've got some questions already going there. So I'm sure Okun would be on top of all that. And I've got a few questions of mine as well.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I will put that through at the end of the presentations during the question and answer session. And I would encourage everyone else that is attending today to have their questions. If you can't trust yourself to remember, you just write it down somewhere or put it down on the chat, and we're monitoring them and we'll read them out So we would have that as a full question and answer session. Thank you very much again, Mrs. Briggs. We'll come back to you. We know you very well. You know us very well. So I'm sure you'll be happy to deal with our questions. Yes. So I will share my screen again briefly. Right. So we are going to our next presentation for the evening, which is going to be presented by Mrs. Carolin Anuregbe. Mrs. Carolin Anuregbe is a social advocate. She's a mother, entrepreneur, and businesswoman. She is the founder of Low Carb and Keto Bakery, UK's first keto bakery. Born of German and Greek descent, she obtained her undergraduate education in Germany before proceeding to study psychology at the Open University. She's aiming to complete her doctorate in child psychology at King's College London. Ms. Anuregbe is going to take us on the topic, addressing gender inequality in the workforce, the perspectives of a career-oriented mother. So, Carolin, I'll stop sharing now. If you are ready for your presentation, you have the Zoom.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you to NAS and Magna Carta, and especially our husbands, for organizing this program today and supporting us in trying to make a difference. My name is Carolin Anuregbe. I'm the founder of the Low Carb and Keto Bakery, and I'm also a psychology scholar and a mother of two. First of all, I have to ask you to forgive me for not being very much prepared today. My youngest is just 8 weeks old, but I will do my very best to touch on this very important issue that not only affects the lives of women, but also entire families across the UK. And that is gender inequality in our workforce, and with this, maternity and parental leave in our country. Gender inequality in the UK workforce is not just a distant problem. It's a reality that impacts millions of women every day, myself included. It's a system of unequal valuing of women's talents, and it does more than just affect our finances. It has a large impact on women's futures and diminishing their financial independence and security way into retirement. Women are often challenged by the dual burdens of both career and caregiving, and find themselves in an endless struggle for fair recognition and reward. As a mother myself, I can attest to the fact that in the UK, career aspirations for many women crumble under the weight of maternity leave and childcare, while our male counterparts are often able to progress their own careers further. The metaphorical glass ceiling mocks women's efforts, holding back a reservoir of talent from reaching into leadership and preserving a cycle of missed opportunities and silenced voices. Despite the progress that we've already made in the UK so far, women still face challenges, especially concerning maternity leave. For example, women in the UK receive just £184 a week in statutory maternity pay. That is significantly less than their international peers, such as in Germany, where I'm from. In my country, parental leave is much more generous and inclusive. The pay is about between 65 and 100% of the salaries for both parents. That is, either one of the parents can take leave, and either one will receive the same 65% to 100% of their salaries that they had before going on parental leave. Our current national minimum wage in the UK is about £423 per week. That is based on an average 37-hour work week, which is more than twice the amount of statutory maternity pay. And all that whilst a study from the University College of London has shown that new mothers spend an average of 40 hours alone with their newborn babies. And that is only considering Monday to Friday. And it doesn't take into account what we do on weekends and how long we spend with our newborn babies on weekends. So this imbalance places immense financial and emotional strain on women in the UK, while already navigating our return to work and then trying to manage childcare costs and reduced income. My very own journey in the UK, unfortunately, has been nothing but a confirmation of some of these issues, and it's been a very tough one. In recent years, my work-related worth and contributions were constantly underestimated and undermined, not because of a lack of talent or ambition, but simply because I'm a woman. I'm a woman who works tirelessly, but I also dared to embrace motherhood at the same time. I mean, can you imagine leaving your newborn baby to return to work only to find that your career has stalled and you're expected to retrain as if you're starting from scratch as a newcomer? I've actually lived through this firsthand. When I had my daughter in 2022, I faced these very challenges. I had to return to work after 6 months because the financial pressure of just receiving only statutory maternity pay was overwhelming. It was insufficient, and childcare costs were crazily high. Approximately £300 a week currently in the UK for full-time childcare. I was very fortunate that my husband stepped up by working extra hours to help us stay afloat, but the strain was too big for me to remain away from work. I had to return back. And when I did return, I was not only frustrated, but I also had to endure the indignity of retraining as if I had just started the job. Despite my previous experience in my workplace, I had worked there, just to give you a bit of a background, I had worked there for almost 2 years prior to going on maternity leave, but I was required to undergo a 6-week training full-time while commuting an hour and a half every day while all of my colleagues were working from home. I felt belittled, I felt undervalued, and as if my contributions and the experience I had previously gained were being dismissed simply because I took time off to take care of my child. In the UK, the approach to maternity leave reveals several structural and systemic inadequacies that disproportionately impact women. Recent findings have actually shown just how dire the situation really is. According to a parental leave report from June 2023, women on maternity leave in the UK are compensated significantly less than their global counterparts, with a mere 13% receiving occupational maternity pay. That is where businesses offer an extended pay to women who go on maternity leave. And instead, most women in our country have to depend on what's called statutory maternity pay, or SMP for short, which lags behind the national living wage, as mentioned before. This gap in earnings post-maternity leave is considerable, perpetuating the motherhood penalty, which was previously mentioned, where mothers face a long-term dip in earnings, contrary to fathers, who often see an increase during that same period. In December 2023, the Maternity Action Report highlighted the discrimination and lack of employer support that new mothers face around 77% of all women reported pregnancy and maternity-related workplace discrimination. And here I want to emphasize that the challenges that women face during pregnancy and child-rearing are really considerable. According to UK law, women are required to inform their employer about their pregnancy by the 25th week, which is considered the point of viability in pregnancy. So from that point onwards, you have to legally tell your employer that you're pregnant, whether you want to or not. However, in my experience, and I believe that this probably is that of many other women as well, I had to disclose my pregnancy a lot earlier than that in both cases. Now, this is well before one is actually ready to tell even their close family members and friends. It can be uncomfortable, it can be stressful, but unfortunately, we often feel compelled to do that because if we don't, any sickness-related absence can negatively impact our performance evaluations. So this situation puts women in a difficult position. We have to give up this sensitive information much earlier than we'd like to, or we could risk our financial security and our job stability. Without officially informing our employers about our pregnancies, we are not protected, and there's actually a risk of being terminated due to reduced performance. And this creates a significant amount of stress and uncertainty for women during a time when we should actually be able to focus on our health and our well-being. Moreover, the commonness of insecure jobs among women worsens their financial instability during and following maternity leave. And this commonness of insecure employment positions compounds these challenges as many women find themselves without sufficient maternity benefits. The shared parental leave policy, or short SPL in the UK, was actually designed to mitigate gender inequalities, but it has only seen less than 3% uptake among eligible fathers. Actually, the numbers that they believe are the true numbers are actually much less than that. They believe that only 1% of eligible fathers in the UK actually take the 2 weeks parental leave that they're entitled to. So it's being criticized for its poor design and compensation because it's deterring fathers from actually taking it. And as a result, these barriers lead to a lack of female representation in leadership positions and challenges with maintaining a healthy work-life balance. But compared to other Western countries, the UK falls behind in providing adequate paternity leave, which is crucial for achieving gender equality. Countries with more generous paternity leave policies tend to have smaller gender wage gaps and a higher female labor force participation rate. The UK's current policies do not encourage equitable sharing of parental responsibilities, and they're leading to long-term financial and career repercussions for new mothers. In addition to that, here women often experience difficulties reintegrating into the workforce due to a lack of flexible working options, inadequate support from employers, and the stigma that is associated with taking leave in the first place. The access to training, development opportunities, and mentorship is often skewed in the UK, with women less likely to receive these resources compared to their male counterparts. And this lack of access can hinder their career progression and reinforce existing inequalities within UK organizations. The Women's Budget Group report of 2021 actually discussed the economic ramifications of maternity leave, advocating for a shift towards a more fair-minded system that encourages shared responsibilities and diminishes the stigma around paternal leave. It actually recommended bolstering legal protections for pregnant women and integrating legal advice within maternity services, alongside ensuring immediate post-maternity leave access to affordable childcare. How wonderful that will be if that actually happens. From my above discussion, I may draw that men can actually play a pivotal role in addressing these inequalities by advocating for equal parental leave, promoting flexible work arrangements, mentoring women, and challenging gender stereotypes, both in our society and in the workplace. When contemplating the pivotal role men can play within the household and the workplace to foster gender equality, it's crucial to stress that the importance of their involvement. For instance, as I'm trying to finish my degree in psychology, my husband's willingness to work additional hours to support our family financially actually is the only way that I'll be able to finish my degree. And so this dynamic isn't unique to us. It's a model that can be adapted in various forms. Men taking a step back in their professional engagements to to provide women the opportunity to pursue more hours, further training, or even higher positions can be a game changer in balancing the scales of career advancement and nurturing a supportive family and work environment. Moreover, advocacy for fair maternity policies, including personal space, for not disclosing private health information to secure legal protections and maternity rights. Normalizing paternity leave and fostering inclusive work environments is very, very, very important. Men can actually champion these initiatives by backing policies that support parental leave for all parents, and thus encouraging a shared responsibility in childbearing and challenging traditional gender roles. Yeah, so I have a lot more, but I was trying to shorten it as much as I can. But I think that men can do a lot, not just in the workplace, but it starts in the household, as Gladys has said before. Without my husband making sure that he's taking these extra hours when I was on maternity leave before, and even now, it would be impossible for me to stay at home and actually take care of our children for as long as I need to, and for as long as they actually need me as well. So let me just end this with Chimamanda Adichie's words, that the problem with gender is that it prescribes how we should be rather than recognizing how we are. Therefore, let's build a future where equality isn't just a distant dream, but the foundation of our reality, leaving a legacy of empowerment and fairness for all. And at the end, I just wholeheartedly ask every one of you to be be a part of creating a world where everyone is valued the same way, where every individual can flourish, because together our collective efforts can actually truly make a meaningful impact on the mission for gender equality in the UK. Thank you so very much for listening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carolin, for taking us through that journey with you. I'll be frank here. When you volunteered to do this, knowing everything that's been going on, knowing that the little one is just about 8 weeks old, I kind of hesitated because I didn't think you could do it. But we've known you for a while. We know how strong you are. We know you look strong. You are stronger than you look. But again, that's what we are saying. Sometimes we assume things, but they are not really what they are. You've taken us through a journey, and I can see people are already thinking about what I'm thinking. But what I want to say, I will say it at the end during the Q&A session. So we'll see how we can leverage on everything you've said and everything that has been said before. And I'm sure things are going to be said later towards doing what we can. Thank you so much. Thank you so very much.
Thank you too. Thank you.
Right. We will go to, like I said, I still have to remind people, whatever questions you have, whatever things you have to say, we want to make this as interactive as possible. Right from time, this wasn't supposed to be a lecture, it was supposed to be an eye-opener, and I would say it's been more than an eye-opener. So we'll go to the next speaker. I will share my screen again. Now, the next speaker is Mrs. Izegwa Okonya. Mrs. Izegwa Okonya is a distinguished London-based lawyer with over 25 years of international experience in the telecom and energy sectors. Her extensive career has been marked by a deep passion for corporate strategy, coaching and mentoring, through which she has successfully built and led high-performance teams. Izegwa's commitment to professional development is exemplified by her role as an associate and mentor with WIMBIZ, an NGO dedicated to empowering and advocating for more excellent representation of women in leadership positions in both the public and private sectors. Through her work with WIMBIZ, she actively inspires and empowers women and men to excel in their careers and achieve their leadership aspirations. In addition to her professional accomplishments, Izegwa is dedicated to her family and is a proud mother of 3 wonderful children. Mrs. Okonya is going to take us today on the topic, removing barriers, the role of allyship. So if you're ready now.
Yes, thank you so much.
You have the floor. Thank you.
And thank you so much for the very gracious introduction and for inviting me to join you today. You've already introduced me, but I'll just do a very brief introduction. Like you've mentioned, I'm a lawyer and I've been working in the legal field in-house for over 25 years. But like you said, my main passion and what I try to brand myself as is someone that's really a coach and a mentor, engaging in this type of conversations where we talk about issues, making sure that we're making building a better society across the board. So it's been so interesting listening to Mrs. Briggs and Mrs. Anorube, if I say Gladys and Carolin, because everything you've talked about just feeds right into my conversation, which is going to be about these barriers that we're facing and how do we take them off? And then how do we have the men acting as allies in supporting women and even men in their career progression and personal lives? So just listening to both of you and the conversations we've been having and the questions in the chat, I can categorize them into about 4 key barriers that we face. Diversity of experiences. We've talked about what the female child faces when she's growing up. What kind of stereotypes do we see being placed on the girls from the beginning of their lives? So when you stereotype them and feel, well, your role is in the kitchen, your color is pink, the type of roles you should be in are more of the nurturing roles, they're more of the support roles, you start to create a trajectory that doesn't allow them to maximize their abilities. So one of the things I would say is that barrier of stereotype is something that we should be mindful of and say, how much experiences are we giving to our girl child? So we have fathers in the room. If you have a young girl, what are the experiences you're giving her? Do you allow her to do female football if she's interested? Would you allow her to do an ICT course and bring her into technology, maths, engineering? What are those experiences that the girl is seeing that allows her to feel confident enough to achieve anything she chooses to do and make her own decisions eventually? That's something that we should look at. And it starts from when we have a girl child. Diversity of experiences also goes through the whole life cycle of the female. We've talked about that we start from young to teenager to young lady that is seeking to be married, but also has ambitions. How do you allow her to feel confident in her choices? To say it's not a zero-sum game, it's not one or the other. You can be a very successful career woman and still be an excellent mother. It's not one or the other. So how do we make sure that those experiences don't limit, right? So other things that we talk about is extending the type of courses that, when we talk about the courses, if you go into a room as a young girl that is feeling conscious and there are only boys in that room, even as the male teacher, how do you make sure that her voice is part of the classroom? Those are all those subtle things that you can do as a man, whether you're in academia, you're in the workplace. How do you ensure that that experience, even if it's an all boys club, there can be a woman in that room having that conversation without necessarily feeling self-conscious about her gender? That's a barrier to be removed, and men can help with that. We've had scenarios where, over the course of my career, where I'm usually the only woman at the table. And now coming to the UK, only Black woman in the room. But then I'm still in the room, and it has been enabled by support with male colleagues, female colleagues. How do you make sure that when you're looking around you and you see the people that are in front of you, if they're all male, and you have a female colleague that is a leader, a manager, bring her in to have that experience? That's something practical that can be done. As the lady is moving around, as she grows up from secondary school, goes into university, once again challenging what may be confidence. Maybe at that point in time, it might feel like, are you being too ambitious? Like somebody has put in the chat, cultural mindset to say, how many books do you want to read? How many more degrees do you want to have? Don't you want to get married? Don't you want to have children? Those are the kind of messages that end up, limiting the woman from achieving her goals, because she feels that if she's doing that, if she's aspirational, if she's ambitious, perhaps she's lacking in her commitment to her family, commitment to her, her womanhood before she gets into menopause or starts to be on the biological clock. Those are the kind of things that we should make sure that we don't limit women to say you can do it, even if it means taking a step back. Maybe it means making some adjustments in the home. We've talked about that, making adjustments to allow your wife or your sister, your daughter to achieve her best self. Another barrier, we can talk about that till the cows come home. So let me move on to another barrier that happens, is language. Now, when we say language barriers, we're saying, what do you attribute the woman's performance to? If a woman achieves something, how do you qualify that? What language do you use in describing what she's done compared to what the man has done? We're not trying to pit women against men here. We're just talking about the general experiences. So for example, I think one of the speakers that talked about it to say, when you're recognizing performance, because there's this unconscious training from young to say, if you've cooked a meal, for example, you've cooked a fancy meal, yes, you should cook it because you're a woman. But if the man cooks the meal, oh my God, you're an excellent cook. Language. Now, language in terms of, attributing performance, recognizing performance, and being able to say to the woman that what you're doing is equally unique, equally praiseworthy, equally promotable, you know. If not, then the woman starts to feel that she has to do a little bit more extra to be able to get half of the recognition. That's a barrier that she faces in the workplace, in the society. So being able to make sure that the language is encouraging, the language is supportive, the language is, recognizing the value that she brings on the job, in the workplace, in everything that she does. And going back to that is making sure that it's not dismissed as it's okay, it's casual, it's not having an impact, right? So those are the kind of barriers that women face. Being able to check again, are there any unconscious biases playing here? Because this is a group of men that have come together to listen, and there's been a lot of curiosity. And even the questions in the chat show a lot of passion for this topic. But sometimes we don't even recognize the unconscious biases to say, that person that has spoken, the language I'm going to use to describe what she's done or what she said is that, oh, what a nurturing person. Oh, what a kind person. Oh, she's so gentle because she's so collaborative. And that language kind of like softens the impact of something that might be significant. So check it and see what language you use to describe when a man does that. You say, wow, that's an ambitious target. That is really setting the bar. That is groundbreaking. Look at it. And all of a sudden you find out that some people that are doing the same thing, like Carolin had mentioned, they get to move faster and the women are not. Or they're being questioned again to say, if you've taken the time off work, you need to retrain because somehow unconsciously we believe that you've stepped back because you've had to go home to take care of children. The brain has not changed. Your ambitions haven't changed. Your capacity has not changed. So checking those unconscious biases that people may not know that they are facing, but checking yourself and saying, would I say that if it was a man that took time off to go on a short medical leave, would I feel that he needs to retrain to show his abilities? Would I need to check again whether or not he still remembers his skills because he's taking extended time off leave? So those are unconscious biases, and that is the language that we need to check. And then we also have this popular statement about imposter syndrome. Yeah, to say women are known to have imposter syndrome. They go into a room, they question themselves, they don't seem to be confident. But then when we look at the definition of imposter syndrome, is to say that you come in and you feel that maybe you're not good enough or you question yourself. Not only women do that, right? Everybody has the ability to do that. But sometimes you find that those languages or those words, they are attached to a certain gender and can act as a barrier. Because then if a man comes in and he's a bit shaky in his presentation, everybody thinks, oh, wow, I still heard what he said. But if a woman comes in and she's a bit shaky in her presentation, it's like she's not ready. So check and ask yourself, if it was a man standing in front of you, would you have the same perception of competence using words that may seem to diminish the experiences of women? And I can tell you that a lot of men are very supportive of women's development. I've seen coaches, mentors that are very supportive in terms of allyship. But once again, it's all about checking within yourself. What is your spontaneous response when you're looking at a woman, when you're looking at a CV, when somebody is coming in for a job interview? What are you looking at when the woman is speaking? Are you saying the pitch of her voice is too high? Are you saying her hair is not pulled back properly? What are the things that you're using to assess her performance and her competence? And ask yourself, if it was a man sitting in front of you, would those factors play? And make sure that we're trying to be as neutral as possible to ensure that women get the best ability to put forward their skills and add and contribute to society. Another thing is the double bind, which I call the double bind, is when, walking that tightrope. Another barrier is walking that tightrope of a woman saying, which one should I be? Should I be a mother or should I be a career woman? Should I be vocal or should I be aggressive? If I say it this way, would I be considered to be overly ambitious or too soft? That double bind of how are my actions, my words, how are they perceived when other people are looking at me as a woman? Do they consider me to be too aggressive because I've made a strong point? Or would it be used as assertive because I know what I'm saying and I'm trying to put forward my position? Would I be dismissive? Would I receive dismissal, or would my views be dismissed because it's not coming from a source that's is a typical source? So if you've always been in a male-dominated environment and the woman starts to speak, would you immediately take on those views? Those are the kind of things that become a double bind to say, are there now some gendered expectations to say, if you're in this room, just be nice and pretty, or nice and quiet, let your voice be soft. If there's somebody says the room is hot now, who should be the person to get up and put on the fan? Unconscious things, So we're not saying that we're going to push and become lawless or out of control, but it's just to ask yourself, what is the double bind that women may need to have women are constantly having to struggle with? And then that's also that progression of the different stages of whether it's when you're just starting your period as a young girl, going through pregnancy and having to organize yourself, deal with your changes physically, and even as you're going on to menopause or perimenopause, how do you then understand that balance that the woman constantly has to make to say, I'm at work and I'm giving it all, but I also feel I must make sure that my children are successful. We have to understand that men also feel that way. Men also want to make sure that the children are successful. And men sometimes, unfortunately, they want to take time off to be with their families, but the workplace does not expect them to do so, but they want to. But then the women want to spend more time at work, and the workplace doesn't, so it's really a double bind. So those are barriers that women face that we have to think about. How do we then prioritize the needs and understand how the workplace has so evolved now that we can make it possible for them to do both, right? And then also leveling the playing field. That leveling the field means, in some organizations, they're very good at that, to say, look, I've taken a target in my company that over the next couple of years, we want to see this percentage of women in leadership positions. So we'll start from our recruitment process and try and see them through to leadership. When you're leveling that field, you have to then understand what are the things that can impact on the woman along that pathway to get to the leadership position. It could be a caring duty where you have to care for the family. It could be maternity leave, like we talked about. And it could just be that there are other people within the race that are faster, less encumbered, and can do many things, at that point in time. How do you then level it and say, look, I have competent women in my workforce, and I insist that if there's a competent woman, not to discriminate against men, but to actually say, I want to prioritize the hiring of a woman who is competent, not a token hire, not a diversity hire, but she's competent, capable, and I'll support her to do this role. So those kind of things that help to remove the third barrier I've categorized as a double bind. And then how do you establish practices, right? Like I said, conscious hiring, conscious coaching and mentoring. We've talked about that too. Consciously coach and mentor the women. That will help them build that confidence and sustain them in the work at home and even in the society. So that's just responding to the barriers and some practical tips of what the men can do in supporting, in moving things forward. And then I just want to kind of progress into allyship, which I'll use in closing this session, and then we can go into the questions. Is like, allyship is, how do you become like a person that walks along with women? I'm your ally. I understand, and now we've had this session, there've been eye-opening, conversations here. How do I then be an ally to women to make sure that in my own sphere, in my interactions, I'm supporting the women's advancement? So I would say one of the things that we can do is to interrupt the bias. Interrupt it in the sense that if you see it happening, you call it out. You don't necessarily have to be aggressive or antagonistic, but call it out and say, look, first of all, I interrupt my own bias to say, why did I think that thought about this woman? And how can I make sure I'm thinking the positive thoughts that help her advance? And then in the workplace or in the society where you see anything that is happening that is against a woman's progression, then interrupt. And I think that somebody has mentioned it in the chat that we have to try and, dissuade those old practices and push to more societal realities that we're in now. And then promote your women, promote women, promote them. It doesn't have to be such a hard thing to find a competent woman that doesn't have to be constantly scrutinized and, turned back front. Is she going to be committed? If we promote her, is she going to get pregnant? I can give you a story. When I had a job many years back, and as I was recruited into the job, my managers were male, and the male managers I've had have been really supportive. But as I started the job, and 2 weeks later, I discovered I was pregnant. So I'd just been hired, and I was thinking to myself, okay, first of all, I've just been hired, and I'm pregnant. So that means in the next few months, like 6-7 months, in the first job, new job, I'm going to go on maternity leave. And for me, I felt my job was at risk. And funny enough, I was very reluctant to have the conversation with my manager. But when I became bold, I said, okay, I'll tell him because it's going to show anyway. And we weren't demanded to disclose that, but I felt it was something to do because it was a new job. And then I had a one-to-one with him, and I had this sense that, okay, he's going to look disappointed and start looking for a replacement and blah, blah, blah. And when I said it to him, he had a blank expression on his face, like, why are you telling me that? That we hired you knowing that you are a young lady of conceiving age, and therefore we factored it in to our hiring that at some point in time, she's going to get pregnant because she's newly married. And even if she doesn't plan to have kids, but it's not a surprise to me. So you can imagine how elated and relaxed I felt knowing that my manager, who is a man, a father, did not respond in the way that I'd assumed he was going to respond. And he gave me support throughout. And it was like, you're pregnant, big deal. Your brain is not dysfunctional. And even if you need to take time off, we will support that. That's a practical way of all the men here to say, look, there's always that concept that we don't want to get, if she's just getting married, and that means that we're losing time. No, you're not losing time. You're gaining an experienced person that will come back to work more dedicated, and her talent is not gone because she's taking a maternity break. Amplify voices. Now, if we are in a male dominant environment, men like to talk, which is good. Some women, like I said, the conditioning from youth is to shush. It's like I said, the language matters. You tell, oh, you have to be quiet and ladylike. So that tends to feed into your older age where you feel that in the workplace, your voice may not be that dominant. And the double bind of if I'm talking too much, would I be aggressive or assertive, whatever. But if in some cases, the experience is sometimes the voices are suppressed because there are not enough female voices. So men can support by amplifying those voices, by saying, look, I'm an ally. And if there's a very strong point that Mrs. A puts out or this person brought in, amplify it and say, look, I noticed that she's been interrupted in this conversation, but Caroline has a good point. Can we hear from Caroline? Some practical, and that is by being attentive to the dynamics in the room. And then support the aspirations. We've heard about husbands taking time to adjust to support aspirations. Support the aspirations because collectively it's for the good of the family and the society. It's not a thing to be threatened about. And I know none of the men here feel threatened because everybody's listening, but it's about supporting aspirations. For our young girls, if they say they want to become aeronautical scientists or they want to become jet fighters, why not? Support their aspirations and help them be the best they can be. And don't shut down a woman that is boldly saying that she wants to be the next CEO or whatever. She's able to do it. We've had female presidents that have ruled perfectly. So why not? And then look around you and see if there's no female voice in the room, maybe it's time to stop that meeting and ask, where are the females? Because it's good to have diverse perspectives. There might just be something that you're missing, and let those voices be brought in. And if in the entire environment, except it's a specific group that is meant to be male, but in the workplace, if there are no women that you feel are qualified to be there, then go down to your HR and start your hiring practice to say, why don't you have qualified women? So look around you and make sure that the female voice is there. And then coach, mentor, sponsor. Coach them, mentor us, support us. It's always good when you have that cross-gender mentoring, because there are always different perspectives that you can get from that mentorship. And obviously, like it's more male dominant in the workplace. So when men are mentoring women, there's a diversity of thought that comes in there, and it's always very useful. And it helps with the long-term development. And then making room for the seasons, like maternity, I've talked about that, caring duties, flexible working. I mean, if you're everybody was shut down during COVID, and I believe that has changed the world of work. So a woman coming in or working from home shouldn't change anything. It's still work that is being done. As long as you're delivering, then it shouldn't, question her competence or her commitment to her work. Try and make that flexible working and make it, possible for women to do their work to the best of their abilities. And then role model other men. I think I'm so impressed by all the men here and just the attention to the conversation we're having. Role modeling to other men to say, look, what's the big deal? If you have to take time to be with the children and your wife is somewhere else, why is that a problem? And vice versa. So role modeling and making sure that people understand that these are issues that are not just personal, but for the society. And then I think I want to end it with just looking at the evolution of the woman. And for those of us that are in the work, maybe we're the ones that are leaders in the workplace, adjust the roles to fit the current stage of the woman's career. Even in the home, adjust the setting to address what the woman is currently facing there. So at this stage, she might be more energetic, so she can do something more. If she's at a low period where her energy levels are low, adjust the environment. In the workplace also, adjust to fit the career stage. I read somewhere, it's unfortunate, but some people feel that once a woman starts to get to her mid-40s, 50, then she's almost retiring and maybe she has gray hair and therefore it's end of career. No, it doesn't work that way. There's so much more that a woman can give in terms of seasoned experience, mentorship, even advancing to the next level. So ensure that the work is adjusted to meet the needs and understand that nobody diminishes by aging. They actually get more wisdom and more value to add to society. So those are just some practical tips from my end, and I would hand over back to Chukwudi for the conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Koma. Thank you so much. Like I said earlier when we started, which I'm sure is happening to everyone here, we thought we knew things, but I'm sure a lot of people like me would have seen there's so much we don't know. Thank you so much for your presentation, and thank you for taking out the time, again to be here today. As you would have noticed, we're a very curious group, and we ask questions and then we try to take those answers to a large people. So you would expect us to call on you sometime again to talk about things, and we hope when we call you, you would respond like you've done this time. We'll go into the Q&A straight away. I have a question on the chat, which was asked by Femi. But since Femi is here, there's no point reading out his question unless he wants me to read it out. He can ask it. He can ask it directly. The question is for Mrs. Gladys Briggs. Femi, are you happy to ask, or you want me to read it out? Okay. So, yeah. Femi, do you want me to read it out? We can't hear you.
Femi, I think you're muted.
Your audio.
Yes, they are muted. So you have to unmute them. if you want them to ask. Ogun, please, can you unmute whoever has indicated that they want to ask questions, please?
I think he's unmuted, but maybe to save
Okay.
time.
Yeah, I will just read it. I'll just read it out because I think it might have to do with his audio feed or something. So the question is for Mrs. Gladys Briggs. Femi is asking. He says, "Thanks for a great passionate lecture. Do you accept that our native cultures and modern religions contribute to a pernicious atmosphere of toxic misogyny that stifles women's ambitions and seeks to confine one half of humanity to reduce roles? Should we be aiming to throw off the yoke of culture and religion and shackling women?"
Okay, so definitely culture and religion have their places in our lives as well, but they come with their own negative connotations as well. The only thing that is constant in life, they say, is change. Things are changing, the world is changing, and we've got to evolve as humans. We cannot continue to, if culture is not helping us to grow, if religion, aspects of the religion are not helping us to grow, then we have to leave it and take what is helping us to grow. Yeah, so I kind of agree with you. I agree with you that yes, not in totality, they have their places. Culture has its place and religion has its place. You know, some of us, it gives us hope. We think we're going to go somewhere and all that stuff. But then there's the other side of it where people try to, use it to control us and to manipulate us. So we are growing in our intelligence. We are growing as human beings in the way that we critically think about things. And we should be able to make a good judgment of, is this going forward, is this going to be of any use to me? Continuing this culture, does it help me to grow? Yeah. So, and then sometimes we, the women as well, we don't even realize that we are our own enemies, as in sometimes we promote the things that do not favor us. So you too, being aware, you can help us to question our own biases against the things that hinder us, to help us grow. Yeah, so that's what I would say to your question. And you have put in you've put in a quite a detailed list of the ways that men can support women. So thank you very much for that. It's all written down in the chats. I don't know whether somebody wants to read them out or,
Yeah, I think yes. If it's possible, please read them out.
Yeah.
Right. I'm sure people have seen it, but I'll still read it out. How can men support women? One, we can start by respecting them, decisively reject any beliefs and cultures that seek to subjugate them, including those transmitted from some old men who claim to have heard messages from God. Two, we can start by promoting equality within families in a proactive manner from the very beginning with your children. Three, we reject the tyranny of conformity, to dare to be different in your expectations of girls and women. And that would lead to one of the things. Okay, we have 4. Be fair in interactions. If you judge all actions and thoughts by the principle of fairness, then gender equality comes naturally. Now, you could see when I said what we are about, what Magna Carta is about, what NAS and Paris Confraternity is about, one of the things that, one of the 4 things that guide us is we say we are against moribund conventions. We are against those things that we say this is how we do it, or this is how it's done, even when we see that those things don't end well and they don't help the society grow. And it's that against moribund convention. That is one of the reasons why we're doing what we're doing today, to educate ourselves and know what are those things? And Femi has hit it on the head, you know, to do away with some of those things. I don't know if anyone has another question or if I can ask mine.
Go ahead with your question.
Okay, I will ask one. Generally, I'm asking for any of the three ladies to respond to this. It's quite basic. I mean, does it help the girls, the girl in the house, in the family, does it help that girl when they see their brothers helping out in the kitchen?
Yeah, I can go with that. Yes, definitely. Because like I said, some of these things is subconscious conditioning. If they see that a man or the brother is not allowed to do any work and she has to do it, then it becomes a psychological process of thinking she must always be in service, per se, or that she's unequal and is the one that should be more of in the support role in society, and a confidence issue. So yes, it's always good for parents to make it clear that the boys would work as equally as the girls. They will learn to cook, they will learn to clean, so that eventually, when life happens, people can share the duties in the home. And it's very encouraging when they can see that. They don't feel like they have to ask for space to be anything else but themselves.
Right. Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Yeah, Femi, go on.
Question that was asked.
Okay.
How can men balance being allies without overshadowing women's voices and experiences? I guess this goes to the panel.
Right. Can you take that again?
How can men balance being allies without overshadowing women's voices and experiences?
Okay. Go ahead, Gladys.
I think everything starts from childhood, and we should teach our boys how to develop their own empathy and sense of duty to their sisters, or to, you know, like I was talking about my colleague who helped me to develop things for me, but he didn't help me by putting me down. And he tried to suggest it in a way that it didn't make me feel as though he was, you know, but I know that he saw me like struggling, staying back every other evening and trying to do all of these things. And he thought he could help. And I accepted that help. And it was between the two of us. So it's all about, you know, you developing your own emotional intelligence. And that starts from childhood. So we have to teach our children how to develop their emotional intelligence on how to do things, how to give information, or how to support somebody without putting them down, without necessarily making them feel patronized, you know. And somebody said in the chat that it's not all about equality, because we know that equality is a farce. It's about equity. How can we leverage? How can we bring women to a good place where everybody will be happy at the end of the day, you know? So we have to teach emotional intelligence. How can I say something to somebody, to a woman, where she's not going to take it the wrong way? How can I help without she feeling that now I want to show that I'm the man, the one with the power, you know? We can still do it. There's so many things. Things like, you know, when I first came to the UK, I used to take my bean out. I used to just take, because in Nigeria, women took the bean out. It didn't mean anything. Women and children did that. It was okay. But on coming to the UK, my husband and I, every day, he was seeing the neighbors taking the men taking the bean out. And one day he said to me, can you don't take the bean out anymore? I don't think it's good for you to take the bean out, because that may come off the wrong way. Because culturally we are different and they don't understand. And immediately he said that, I knew that, okay, he's thinking, so that we don't come off as this man is the one that they, because in our own culture, it's normal. But those are the types of things that, that's how you step in and do something without making somebody feel that, they are less than you in any way, because nobody is less than anybody, truly. We are all contributing, at different levels. I hope that answers the question. If you have anything to say, Isabella.
Yes, that I really like the fact that you use the word emotional intelligence, because it's all about, because the question is about not feeling like you're overshadowing the woman. And that comes down to emotional intelligence, to say, how am I doing this? So if I give another example, in addition to what Gladys has mentioned, is if in the workplace, for example, you want to show allyship, you try not to make it like you're patronizing the woman. So if she's done a great job, you can, in private, tweak the work and then push her in front, and not take any glory to say that you're the one that tweaked that work. So bring her, put her in front. In some cases, because it's not a very regular occurrence for women to take those leading positions, if she does the first one and she doesn't do it right, put her out again. That's allyship, because what you're doing is you're investing in her skills. The same way a man would invest in another man. I mean, all the studies and all the books that we read, they talk about how there's a lot more focus on investing on young men, and just not being too worried about the fact that they may stumble. It doesn't matter, just shake it off and keep moving. But with a woman, it always feels as if there's been something, a crisis, or something is fundamentally wrong because she had a bad outing. So being an ally is by, the voice is not, you don't overwhelm with your voice, you just keep supporting and saying, go and do it again, go and do it again, because I believe that you can. And even if other people may want to diminish it with the language of, oh, maybe she's not ready, or maybe she's not a performer, you can step in as an ally and say, no, let her go ahead, because I remember in my own past, I did this, and nobody said that to me. Those are the kind of ways you can make sure the voice is not diminishing the woman.
Thank you. Femi, before I come to you, because I know you said you want to make a statement. This question is for Caroline. It says, it's from Obina. It says, can you suggest how we as men can advocate for the equality in paternity leave / pay in the UK?
I think number one would be to actually take that paternity leave that the UK legislation currently allows men to take, which is 2 weeks. So you get 2 weeks of paternity leave. Be that 3%, so that the 3% can turn into 4 and 5 and 6, and make it more common for men to actually take these 2 weeks of leave, because your wives need it and your children need it. And then apart from that, this is a country where we can petition the government to actually look at the current legislations and potentially reverse them or change them. So you can always, make petitions to the MPs. You can write open letters to your local MPs as well, asking them to look at the current laws and change them where it is necessary. It is just far too uncommon for men to take these 2 weeks that are available to them. So start making that change yourself, and then potentially try it politically in ways that are available to you.
Right. On the back of that, because it was one of the things I was going to ask. Since you ladies already are conversant with these things, we would appreciate if you could, if you could guide us on if there are any organizations we can leverage on to work with to push this advocacy, because that is one of the things we do. That is one of the things we pride ourselves in. We're an advocacy group. And if there is any organization that you can point us towards, or we can partner with to raise this topic. Like I said, we are a large organization. Even in the UK here, we've got different branches. And so we can get our signatures or whatever it is we need to do, whatever campaign we need to do. we hope you'll be able to get back to us to tell us, to signpost us towards what we can do or who we can work with to raise this awareness even more than we have today. Femi, you say you'd like to make a comment, so go ahead.
Yes.
Please unmute him. Okay.
Yeah, he's fine now.
Yes, can you hear me, please?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I consider myself a feminist, not least because my first name is Femi. But I want to make a passionate appeal to the men here and in the Paris Confraternity in general. We are a male-dominated organization, and a lot of giving up or promoting gender equality is actually about us giving up undue advantage. No human being likes to do that willingly. If whatever advantage we have, whether it's economic or social or religious even, or whatever, it is not a natural human instinct to want to give it up. So we should not pay just lip service to the issue of gender equality or promotion of the welfare of women. We must be, it's in a practical way, for example, it's very tempting to come back from work and put your feet up and watch football while the woman slaves away in the kitchen. So if you are promoting equality at home, you are willingly giving up what is an undue advantage. So we must be alive to that. That's the first point I want to make. The second point, and I'll be very brief about this, is one of the cardinal principles of the Paris Confraternity is what we call act over yap. We do after talking. And if this is not to become just another talk shop, we need to come away from this, I think, with a program of action. We need to have defined activities that will push this agenda forward. I mean, we've had extremely brilliant contributions from the three wonderful ladies who've spoken to us today. We need to push that forward into any councils, any bodies, any individuals that we may have influence with, be they politicians, civil servants, civil society groups, and so on and so forth. So I'm pleading with the president, Dr. Nwigwe, the other Chudi, and the program director, the Chukwudi, and all other men here. And I will play my role as well. I'm the chair of a committee of NAS centrally that deals with advocacy. We need to develop from this session a program of advocacy, a list of organizations and individuals that we're going to produce a memorandum from this event and send on to. Otherwise, we will just be yapping and not acting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to read out something Ammonia Gaspar said. She said, some male children love the kitchen and nurturing roles, and some girls prefer to tinker with the cars from an early age. It's about nurturing each individual interest and talent, which is quite instructive. Just to, on the back of what Femi said about giving up on undue influence, for me, any younger person that gets married that is close to me, male, there's something I always tell them, and I will share it with all of us here. I always tell them, you are already stronger. You don't need to prove it. And the way you can show that strength is not to show that you're stronger, is actually to step back and let her shine. So, because like I said, you're already stronger, you don't need to prove anything. But to prove that strength is to step back and, like Femi said, give up that undue influence. It might not be easy to do, but frankly, it's a rewarding thing to do. And I hope we'll be able to take that away from today as well. So any other question? If you want to ask a question, you either raise your hand if your camera is on, or you raise it electronically, and we'll see it. Right. Okay. I'll ask one of mine, which is the last one I'll ask today. I'll ask, how much do you think these preconceived notions that we have as Africans, like Femi highlighted, coming, how much do you think they contribute to the home and marital pressures we see that the Japanese face? I'm sure most of us now are conversant with that term, Japanese. How much do you think these preconceived notions we have, like Femi said, you think if you come back from work, it's okay for you to come home, put your feet up, and you get served your meal? How much do we think it causes? Because we see it happening a lot of times. People very happy, they come over here, and then after 6 months, they can't even bear to see each other. Does that play a role?
Well, I don't know if I can come in here, Chukwudi.
Go on.
Well, you have answered the question already yourself, because first of all, I think you look at the rate at which couples get, well, I don't want to say divorced, but issues in their marriages when they come here, particularly if they have come from where religion and culture plays such a vital role in gender, because like Femi said, in some cultures we know that it is the work, or like Glad said, it is the work of the woman. Even as a young girl, she starts making those fake food, and the man assumes the father, who doesn't do anything but just sit and wait for the food to be served. So you see that starts at the early age, and that cycle conditions both the man and the woman, that this is your role and this is my role. And then when they get here, where unfortunately the culture is not the same, they expect to superimpose whatever they have brought from Africa into the UK, and it doesn't work. So when you look at the statistics of the number of failed marriages, let me not say divorces, failed marriages, that will probably give you the answer that you are looking for.
Yes, can I just, and honestly, what you said is right. It's usually a major culture shock for many families to adjust, especially like you said, when we're coming from a culture and religious background. And the idea is for people to just understand that there's a different environment. And it helps actually for those that are open to evolving. It actually helps to strengthen the marriage when you realize that we're in a place where you don't have that support system of maybe you previously had 2 nannies, 1 driver, and anybody you can call and tell them to come to your house to knock a door. Now you're the one doing everything. The what we call DIY, you're the one that is now the plumber, the carpenter, you're doing the cooking, the dishes. And if we don't evolve our thinking to adjust to what a reality is of shared parenting, shared home support, in some cases you might have a scenario where the roles are reversed in terms of earning power, and they evolve. It could be one today, it could be the other time. But for those that take advantage of the opportunity, it actually strengthens the marriage, because then all of those biases, all of those boxes, they're leveled. And you understand that you're here to raise a family together. You're not here to compete in terms of which role is more superior, but actually you're here for a common goal, which is a society, a family that is productive, children that are well-rounded, and a home that is, settled. So yes, it plays a lot, but hopefully everybody understands that You're not going to be one kind of person throughout your life. So you have to evolve. And like the story of going out and taking the bean, that sense of also emotional intelligence, understanding that it's a different society here. So if you don't kind of adjust and take the good parts of it, our culture is very strong. We have the positive parts, the ones that are not taking us forward, we drop them. And then we see that even in the UK, the other cultural parts, like what Carolin talked about, parental, for the paternity leave is very slim here. But just cross over to Norway, the men take 6 months and it's shared parenting. The paternity process there, you wouldn't even believe it's the same society, because they make sure that the way they structure the maternity and paternity leave takes care of the first year of the child's life. So they share their leave days, and it's between the men and the women until the child is able to go to kindergarten at the age of 1. So hopefully those are the kind of things that we can borrow from, not only from our Nigerian culture, but even the culture of other societies, to see what makes the best for a family that is stable and productive.
Absolutely. I mean, generally, I think globally, the world is changing. To think that even here in the UK, that women were discriminated upon in some areas, even to vote, even to, in other places where they have that very strong cultural or religious background that forbids women from doing certain things, that they are beginning to reverse that. I think it is changing. People are beginning to learn, although that's not enough. We still need to do more. In some places, women are not allowed to drive or even go outside on their own, simply because they are women, not because they can't do it, But you see that the trend is changing. That trajectory is beginning to change. All those, some of those factors are beginning to, the trend is reversing. So I think it's changing. We're developing, we're evolving, but we need to do more. Like we say here, we need to, act over here for us as pirates. But, send spread the word, the message out there. And, like Chukwudi mentioned earlier, if there are any organizations or any pressure groups that, you know about, I think what we can do is just put more pressure on, even if it's just our local MPs, and then get them to, reverse or continue with some of these trends.
Thank you. Thank you, Chudi. Tamuno, you've got your hands up. Sorry, I was waiting for the time to call you up. Tamuno Amatri.
Yes, Tamnimi Amakri.
Okay.
I want to ask if I know we're talking about marriages, although it's not the topic, but I observe that when Nigerians meet here and get married, their marriage lasts longer than when a Nigerian goes to Nigeria, marries somebody, and brings them over here to live. If you see the ratio of divorces between Nigerians, between those who get married after meeting each other in UK and those who go to Nigeria to bring a partner into UK and marry, that bring from Nigeria is higher than the one that meet here. Can any of you say something about why that is the case? Hello, did you get me?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I'm sure they are forming their answers. Yeah, go on, ladies. It's your question.
So, Gladys, do you want to take it, Estable?
I think
Carolin?
it's kind
Yes,
of
go ahead.
overlapping with the other question about why the divorce rates are high and all that.
Yeah.
I think there isn't enough experience for the person that is coming from Nigeria. They're not prepared mentally for the difference, because the person who has lived in the UK or abroad has gathered a wealth of experience and has changed in the way that they think and their approach to life generally. And so when you go to pick a wife from Nigeria or a husband from Nigeria, it may take them another 5 to 10 years to get to where you are in their minds. And for some people, they may never get to that place. And this is going to be very conflicting all the time for you. Gone are the days of our moms and dads, when they could just pick a wife for you from somewhere. And it's all about the change that we're talking about. And we've got to make ourselves, we've got to be adaptable and to make ourselves act according to the world that we live in currently. And that world that we live in currently is not a world where you're thinking that, well, first of all, you have to ask yourself, why do you have to go to Nigeria to get a wife when there are so many Nigerian girls who are single in the UK? It means that you may have maybe a conceived mind that somebody who is coming from Nigeria may not know about these rules. Yeah. And then you want to, or there may be other things. The difference, staying in the UK just for 2-3 years can totally change your mindset. And you may not realize it, but you are very different to somebody who is just coming from Nigeria. And it may be only 6 months before you people fall apart. Yeah. I don't know if my sisters have anything else to add to that.
I think you have to. You have to. It gives you that leverage to know that the bean. I mean, it goes back to the story of the bean, taking the bean out.
Yes, exactly.
So,
it was nothing in Nigeria, and I didn't think anything of it. I didn't think anything of what you see, that your husband is taking the bean out. He has to take the bean out. And if you're taking that bean out, you too, as a woman, you need to be thinking you're not putting your husband in the good light, because your neighbors are perceiving him as maybe a chauvinist, the one that wants food cooked for him, and the wife taking the bean out for him, which it meant nothing to you in Nigeria. So all of those differences, you've got to be able to think about them before you decide that, okay, you're going to bring somebody from Nigeria. Yeah.
I think we also learn from cross-cultural interactions also. So we learn from the different cultures, we intermarry, we develop, broad mindsets. I mean, listening to Carolin, anybody else, I don't see the difference, whether it's going to Nigeria. It's about your mindset and your attitude, being broad and being able to understand that there's no quick fix. If people are coming in to the country and they're divorcing, it might be a mindset that hasn't changed to say, I want to make sure that the old school thinking of one person is meant to be the breadwinner at all times. And so if something is wrong somewhere, it's crashing. Or one person is meant to be the cook at all times. And if she's not cooking or he's not cooking, things have crashed. But being able to evolve the thinking to say, look, it's not about whether, like what I call it, the gendered roles. The role is that the man is the one that goes to work, the woman is the one that takes care of the children. No, it's parenting responsibility. We're all is responsible for the family. So when those things are not dealt with in a broad mindset, then you start having those challenges. So if somebody is coming and they come to a society where people share the load, people do the laundry, everybody does the work, so that things are efficient and you can move on to the next thing, then it ends up being a problem. Perhaps that might be one of the things to think about. Maybe there should be some kind of onboarding program. When you have Jackpad, come and do a little bit of an induction of what to expect, so that it's not a culture shock, which it always happens to be for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've got hands up. Ike Okolo. Ike Okolo, do you want to? Hold on. Yeah. You need to unmute yourself now.
Mhm.
Can you hear
Yeah.
me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, this is a very interesting topic. I think it generally depends on the individuals and how you relate in the family. I'll use myself an example. Say for example, now you as we were saying just now, men will come home and sit down and watch TV and wait for cook to be fed. If your wife is not in the house to feed you, what do? You starve or wait for her to come back and feed you? My wife works crazy long shift. She's a medical doctor. She works in the A&E. So you have to adjust generally. You know, I'm not going to be waiting for her to come back at 11 or 11:30. The kids should be in bed by that time. I would generally take them to bed and do stuff I need to do in the house and feed myself and probably wait for her to come back and feed her. You know, that's generally how things are supposed to work. You can't just sit and wait. I think generally, like we were saying here just now, men that come from, or people that come from Nigeria, stuff don't last for them because they don't, it depends on the environment where you live and where you grow up and what you see. You know, if I have lived in both places, so I've seen both things and I've been able to learn from both sides. You can't just expect someone to come somewhere and change overnight. The person has to see what the environment is and learn from it because he or she knows only one thing. And that's generally how it works. This one about taking paternity leave. I took my own paternity leave for my 2 weeks. Who doesn't want to take paternity leave and go free and still get paid? I took my own quietly 2 times I had kids. I took my paternity leave, and also your partner will also need it because it's a hard thing to just stay with the child for 24/7. You know, the child goes through their moods, they wail, they scream, they do stuff. I remember on occasion I came back. I just entered the house, my wife just took the baby at me. I literally just gave me the baby. I didn't say anything, I just went upstairs. And I knew just from that reaction, because she doesn't normally do that she was stressed out. I didn't say a word, I just took the kid. I just started doing what I needed to do and just let her rest until she was ready and she came back down and was a bit calmer. And that's generally what you need to do. You can't just say, I'm the man and it's going to be like this. It doesn't work like that or you'll have problems, you know, and that's basically it from my perspective. You know, that's how I see it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Okolo. Uche Agukwe, you've got your hand up. Uche Agukwe, you've got your hand up. Just unmute yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. You've muted yourself again.
Sorry.
Yeah, just go ahead.
Okay. I said I must commend the organizers of this event, you know, by leading by example, you know, featuring the ladies. And I really enjoyed every one of them, you know, their lectures, you know, and I have my take home. So just a quick question for them. Is there anything hindering the women from coming together in achieving more results in equality?
Right. Over to you, ladies.
Mhm. Women have been coming together. There have been so many women groups that have been doing a lot of work on, in fact, where women are today is so much progress from where women were maybe even 10 years ago. So women have been doing a lot, but you know, it's a work in progress.
Yes.
Just because we have been doing a lot does not mean we have to stop. It's an ongoing process. So yeah, that would be my answer to that. Yeah.
And yes, so women have been coming together, like Gladys said, and there are many women groups in different locations, both in the UK, back home in Nigeria. The one I mentioned is WIMBIS, is Women in Management and public service. So they're very established. It's now their 20th year. So they do all this advocacy and making sure that women can develop themselves in whatever sphere of business they're in, even in organizations. So maybe one of the things that could potentially come out of here is if your organization doesn't have anything like that, you might talk about it to say maybe the women can come together and do some mentoring of themselves. Where I work, there was there are different initiatives. There was a specific initiative about women empowering and supporting themselves to move on to the next level of leadership, because they observed that many women were stopping at middle management. They started off in the finance community. They noticed that many women were stopping in middle management and they just couldn't seem to move to the next level. And so some women at a senior level took the initiative and established what she called WISE, which is Women Empowering Women. So they started one-to-one mentoring for the women, just using a book to say, what are the kind of barriers that you're facing and what can you do to support, to improve your chances of moving forward. That was one perspective, but they actually then expanded it after they were doing the women to women. They expanded it and they got men to then come and be part of the mentoring. So not just women that are mentoring themselves, but men mentoring women. So those are the kind of things that have been broadening, and we started seeing women advancing further because now the allies are aware of the kind of things that they face and have been giving mentorship and coaching and sponsorship to help them out. So that's how we've been putting ourselves together to try and get things done. More to be done, and with the support of men, even better.
Right. Yeah, that goes back to what I said earlier. We're hoping, and what Femi has said, and what Jody has said. We're hoping, and we'll work hard so that this is not just a talk shop that ends here. We would work with you guys, work with whoever we need to work with, just to amplify this, and so we'll get more people to hear it. And just on that, I will read out something somebody, Chimobi Nwankwo, has said. He says, "Thank you guys. I've been enlightened by this exercise. My 5-year-old daughter has been asking me to get her a toy car, but due to societal perception, I've been ignoring that request. Now I know better. I think I have not been fair enough. She will get her car ASAP." Now, this is exactly what we set out to do. We set out to open our minds, to tell ourselves that we might think we know, but we might not really know. And things like that, and like the Chimobi Nwankwo has said, these are things we hope to achieve today. Obinna.
Well, sorry, okay, I was going to say something.
Yeah, go on.
Sorry, women, I think from time immemorial, they've been coming together, even in the UN, from 1975 in the Mexico conference, 1995 in Beijing, China, Women's Conference, and so on and so forth. We have had so many of them, and up to date. Even I remember when I was a kid, that song, what a man can do, I, woman, can do it. So the support has been there, the core, it's been there since. It didn't just start today. So they have been doing something and they will continue to do. But what we are doing here is how to amplify whatever they are doing or whatever that is encumbering them in achieving the same, that equality. And like the question you read now, or the suggestion that you read now, Chimobi now said, I'm going to buy a car for my child. I was watching YouTube, something on my phone the other day, WhatsApp, a young girl who just finished her degree in UNN in Nigeria, in food and nutrition or something like that. But she has passion in, fixing cars. Now that's what she's doing. During strike, she went to learn that. Now she's a professional. You have them here and there, and the government is supporting them. You have so many programs that Women Empower WIP, even in Nigeria, so a certain percentage of positions in elective positions are dedicated to women, that they must be in power. So, but whether that is enough, we don't know. But it's work in progress, like Gladys said. Thank you. Yeah,
Obinna, you've got your hand up. Is that a legacy hand or?
Hi. Thank you very much. I just want to appreciate all the presenters. I don't know, can you hear me? And for giving such an inspiring talk. Very, in fact, I've been reflecting my own and just thinking in my own practice what I've been doing, probably thinking I was being an ally, but maybe I haven't really been, and something to take home. I wanted to. I was just thinking in looking at. I work in the hospital and there are so many things that are peculiar to different places where people work, and I'm just thinking there are jobs that invariably require someone working alone. So places like in the hospital here, there are just policies that most organizations do in order to protect the lone worker. And then I'm now thinking, what can one do as a manager, as a leader, to support a woman whose job puts them in that position where they're a lone worker. So obviously they're at risk of assault or physical abuse or verbal abuse and all that because they're working on their own. For example, a cashier who's working in the basement, or someone who's probably checking in the police where they probably received miscreants who are being brought in to be booked in or something, or someone who's supposed to be caring for someone who in a care home, who's known to be very aggressive and all that. Because sometimes when you want to then employ a lady who you think is qualified, but then thinking about what it might put them through, or what it might expose them to, you might trying to be an ally, not put the person forward for that job. But whereas it's invariably seen in the negative light from what I've now been heard. So I'm just looking at, I can see Isabel nodding. I'm just thinking, is there anything you can add as to help, an employer navigate that difficulty? Thank you.
Yeah, okay, I can take a stab at this because I'm in an industry where I'm in the oil and gas. So obviously you think about, if you want to compare that, some roles that women may need to go offshore to be on the rig. And this is really heavy lifting and quite dangerous and can expose to elements. The same in the medical industry, like the roles that you just explained. I think the starting point is, like you mentioned, the policies, is like risk assessment. You risk assess the roles and see what exactly are those exposures that the person may be facing. A man also doesn't want to be mugged, right? So even though you don't want to put a woman in that role because she's deemed to be more, what's the word? Vulnerable. The man too doesn't want to be mugged, right? He doesn't want, he's also vulnerable. So I think if we neutralize the role and look at it from a perspective of, first of all, what is your risk assessment for that role? What have you put in place in terms of making sure that it's a safe location to work, regardless of your gender? And then how do you make sure that if a person is competent and willing to do the work, you can put in place some backup? So if a man is lone in working in that situation, maybe you should have a double person. You can have CCTV, you can have panic buttons, you can have anything that can make sure that the place is extra safe. Because I want to step back in this case and say, let's make it gender neutral, to say safety is the priority. And then if it's a job that requires physical force, then you can say, okay, is this person that is qualified? Does this person have the strength? And then if you feel that you still want to create a pathway for people to go into that role, what can you automate? What can you mechanize? So it's about thinking about your policies and how you can evolve them and adapt them to your environment, using your risk assessments, making sure that it's safe for anybody, regardless of gender, and then making sure that you're not unwittingly closing the door to some people because you're just putting it as a default that this role is static. So you can actually evolve that role to make it less static. If a role needs manual lifting, maybe you need to get something that is automated or a machine so that the person can use it without necessarily exerting force. So those are the kind of things that we talk about evolution in the workplace, both the policies and then the practices. That's just my 2 cents on that, but anybody else can mention.
Right, thank you. If Gladys or Carolyn doesn't have anything, the presenters, I'll have to plead with you. I know we've run longer than we expected, but it's partly your fault for opening this discourse as much as you've done. And Ola, you had your hand up. Do you still have your question, or it's been answered?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Thank you very much. Well, I deliberately had to put down my hand because the discussion was already over. But what I just wanted to add to what has been mentioned earlier, sorry I joined a bit late, is the aspect of when we talked about encouraging women in taking up some responsibilities, especially at workplace or wherever they find themselves. And I think one of the things that we could also do is actually asking, because oftentimes that clear communication isn't there, and sometimes we have expectations. We feel like, oh, they should be able to attain this position, but asking to know exactly how they feel about certain roles, certain responsibilities, and guiding them through how to attain it is crucial. And this goes both ways. Some men may feel reluctant to assuming certain responsibilities, even at their workplace. So having that clear-cut communication, working as partners is one of the things that I really take from this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ola. Thank you. Magna Carta is raising their hand. Is it the admin that's raising his hand?
Yes.
Okay.
There was another question for Caroline. I didn't want us to miss it.
Okay.
It says, as a business owner, sorry.
Yeah.
What policies do you believe are crucial for supporting and empowering women entrepreneurs? And how can these policies be implemented and advocated for within the business community? So I guess we're trying to get our own unique perspective as a business owner.
I think Carolyn stepped out her a bit. Maybe when she comes back, you will read that question. I'll read something Femi said. Femi, there are too many big words in this thing, but I'll try my best. We must also fight against pseudo-intellectual fight back from the avatars of misogyny. They diminish by all sorts of scientific mago-mago the reality of female subjugation. They seek to deny the problem of female subjugation and therefore undermine any attempts at remediation. These intellectual frauds need to be called out too. And somewhere he goes down to say, strength does not correlate with gender. Some women are stronger than some men. Some roles are not suitable for short or asthmatic men. And anyone who has playfully wrestled with women will attest to strength existing outside the male domain. So, yeah, so there you have it. That's Femi. Caroline is back now. So, Okung, you might need to repeat that question so that I think we'll come to the end.
Okay, let me take it again. So for Caroline, The question was, as a business owner, what policies do you believe are crucial for supporting and empowering women entrepreneurs? And how can we effectively implement and advocate for these policies?
So one of the things that I did in my business was to actually actively promote women into leadership positions. And it was mainly because I could attest to the fact that women are quite good at handling very many different things at the same time, quite effectively. So I saw that when I was promoting women more than, I was promoting men as well, but they weren't actually quite effective at that job than the women were. So that is one thing that I would suggest to do. Another thing was I offered compassionate leave. So when somebody had to stay home because they didn't have childcare covered for the day, they would still get paid, even though they were technically off and it was impromptu. But that was promoting, a well-balanced family life. And also it was enabling them to arrange childcare for the next day effectively and then be back for the next day or the day after that. I also offered very extensive training for all employees and not just women on various things that were very important to have within the job itself, but also on equality within the workplace. Because if people are not trained to know what to look out for, you wouldn't expect them to know what to do when it comes to a situation where there is inequality in that workplace. So it's very important to train all the people that you have working for you.
Right. I was thinking that was the last question, but someone just said something which I would read out for the ladies. Then that will be the last one. I'm sorry, if you've got any more questions, you can send them to us and we'll forward them to the ladies. After this question, I'll read out. We'll take our thank yous from the Vice President, Osato Osayande, and the President will make the last remarks. So Uche Onyigwe says, Chukwudi, I hear you when you said that men should step back and let their partners shine. What do you do? He's not asking me, of course. He's asking you, the ladies. What do you do when you step back, provide encouragement for her to shine, and yet you don't get the support in return when it is now required? We see this happen in family and corporate life. I'm sure the presenter has heard me. So in as much as he called my name, it wasn't me he was asking.
Doesn't that take us back to the communication is key situation? You have to be able to communicate your expectation. You have to be able to your partner or whoever you are having that interaction with. So, and also supporting is supporting with love and not supporting because XYZ is going to happen to you in return. You understand? It's supporting in love. And if love is there, you can both support each other. But if there's a situation where you feel that your partner is not standing up and giving you the support after you've given them, you need to be clear. I know that our men, communication is not their strength generally. I don't know about other parts of Africa, but Nigerian men, a lot of things are thrown under the cupboard. They end up as feelings of hurt inside of them, and they come out in other ways. But that's something that we need to work on. If you want something from your spouse, you've got to speak up. You've got to tell them, girl, this, you're not giving, I'm not feeling the vibes. You didn't, like, where is your energy for me? Where are you? How are you stepping up for me? How are you, like, holding my banner and allowing me to shine? I was allowing you shine too the other day, and then things can fall into place if everybody is clear about what they need to do to make each other happy or make each other grow, make each other thrive. That's how I see it.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody else have anything to say? None. Okay. We will go to the Vice President, Osato, to please make his remarks.
All right. Am I audible?
Yes, you are, clearly.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much, Gladys and Carolin and Izegua. I know how to pronounce that one easily. It has been very, 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 very informative and educating forum for us this evening, the Feast of Barracuda, as we call it. It's been an education of thoughts to us, because one of the things that I've just taken away, even at this level, there's no level where you reach in life that you don't learn, is that communication is key. And this is knowledge that we must impart to our children as well. Communication is key. The people that we interact with on a daily basis, first of all, will be your spouse, the person you interact with. You live in the same bedroom, you walk around, you brush each other when you're passing, everything. So if you lose that communication or you never had it, then you can still bring it in. So I think that we're very much in touch with everything that you have all said today. You have opened a lot of doors, and like Femi said, we should not just talk and sweep it under the carpet. We'll have to take this to another level, and we'll be expecting, hopefully, your kind participation and interaction with helping us get it to where it should be, an appreciable level for it to take off. So thank you very much for taking your time out to be here with us today. And thank everyone for also participating.
Thank you. Thank you, Osato.
Thank you very much.
We'll take our final remarks from Chudi.
Thank you very much. It's been amazing, absolutely very, very super informative. And you have made some very fantastic presentations here. I hear Osato as telling you that hopefully we'll be back again. Unfortunately, ladies, you are locked on now. Like Chukwudi said, your presentation, in fact, if we start to digest it, this is just will be the preamble, the prelude to the chapter 1. And then we can be here for the next week, because they are very, very interesting and very educative. And I'm sure everybody that, attended this will go home smiling, because there are things we thought we knew, but listening to you, Glad, you mentioned about the color coding for children. Even when we thought it wasn't happening back home in Africa, it is happening here. We're looking at, the tech and the home front. Like one of the presenters here is now, I can see that he's making order online on eBay now, or Amazon, for the young little girl. Yes, for a toy car. These are things we thought we knew. Taking out things, simple things like taking out the bin. How I am from environmental school of thought. We have two schools of thought. School of environmental possibilism and environmental determinism. That the environment determines your way of life, or that it is possible to change it. So when people come here or come from Africa, and they think, oh, this is it. But, going forward, you see that is not it. You don't hold tenaciously to all those beliefs, and then you start to change them gradually. So there's a lot. And then, like a teacher that you are, Glad, you have given us a very big assignment. I'm sure the bookworms like Femi have submitted theirs, but a lot of us will go back home and then do little more research to make sure we get a very good grade in your assignment. It is not what we need to do in a hurry. It is an assignment for life, because these things, we encounter them every day, and the assignment will help us in our journey throughout life. Carolin, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to thank you, to see that you have a baby of 8 weeks, and then you were still able to give out your time to us for the sake of humanity, to do all that you did here today. I can only say thank you. But like I said, unfortunately, you are in. No going out. We can't lose that level of expertise and that level of engagement that you have presented here. And then for you, Izebua, I still know how to pronounce it. You have different feathers, not just the as a lawyer of a long-standing many years experience. Like you said, you're a coach, you're a mentor. We can't lose that. We have learned so much from what you said here. So it is about encouraging the ladies. If you see, for instance, a job that you think they are good at, like Glad said, go from back, even if it's just a piece of paper, you write, fantastic presentation, keep it up. That boosts their morale, So the next day they're doing it, and then you go and say, I think this was good, this was very fantastic, this is also good, but if you add this one, it will make it better. That helps in building their confidence. And then also, sometimes just, okay, apply for the job and then come, let's go through it. That's the way to make them shine. And then, so it's been wonderful. Like I said, if we continue, maybe next week, we're still exhausting the preamble for the first chapter. So I must thank you very, very much. And that's all we can do now. But like pirates, what we do is that in anywhere we find ourselves, any environment, we say that whenever the environment needs a hand, the pirates should be number one to render such help. I mean, it talks about women, gender equality at work, and everything has been going on. We have mentioned, a lot of conferences, just for women, from Mexico to Beijing to Copenhagen to Nairobi, different, many of them, but it's not enough. So we will keep on keeping on. We'll keep on doing our best until we make the society a better place for all of us. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you all for coming, and then we'll see you again this time next year. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so
the
much.
presenters. Thank you for spending your evening with us. And then I have to say a special thank you, because I know a lot of people have joined in from Nigeria, and so many of them were asking questions and making, even the person talking about buying toys for the child. I can see now that they're actually joining in from Nigeria. We take these things for granted. It must have cost them much more than it will cost us to stay online this long. And yes, and I thank them. And like Femi said, and like Chode has said now, we are going to reach out to you again to be able to formulate, the next step in this thing we've started. And we hope to stand with you shoulder to shoulder to do what we can. Thank you very much, and thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, and have a very good evening.
You too. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.